Hey everyone, so a while back I made a debunk on something called the electric universe, thinking it would be a one-off thing, but the toxic reaction I received from certain people made me realize I'd struck a nerve, in a way that hadn't been done yet and desperately needed to be done. The majority of the backlash came from followers of a guy named Ben Davidson, who runs a channel called Suspicious Observers, which I had never heard of before he angrily reacted to my debunk by slandering me on Facebook, commanding his followers to attack me, and then sending thinly veiled physical threats by email. Pause for a moment and skim these, as they provide all the necessary context in order to know exactly who this guy is. Beyond insinuating that someone was going to come to my house and get me, he made a pathetic response video to my debunk, riddled with grade school level physics errors, deliberate misrepresentations of scientific research, and the same tired anti-establishment narrative that is rampant in this and other areas of pseudoscience. Finding this all rather irritating, I made my own response to show that Ben is just a lawyer who pretends to understand astrophysics to make money on the internet. Despite his threats, after I put out that video, Ben just fumed silently, probably quite embarrassed of his childish behavior on display for all to see, as he never contacted me again directly. To quickly wrap up this brief bit of context, I then debunked a scam called the Sapphire Project, followed by a channel called Sky Scholar, another fraud who pretends to understand astrophysics while accusing real researchers of fabricating data. I hadn't known that Sky Scholar was Ben's protege in fraudulence, and was thus surprised that his minions attacked yet again, prompted by an embarrassing response video by Sky Scholar which addressed none of the main points of my debunk, a fact to which Ben's drones were blissfully unaware, as none of them had watched it, instead choosing to throw around accusations of ad hominem without knowing what that term means. It's too bad that they didn't see my first response to Ben, as according to their tone policing, they might have something to say about Ben throwing out pinball-playing beta male bitch. Given how thoroughly I'd been exposing this network of space-related pseudoscience, it's no surprise that Ben slanders me regularly on his channel, but if he were a little smarter, he would have kept his mouth shut, like some other frauds I've debunked whom I haven't heard a peep from, because I now have to demonstrate in far greater detail how Ben is nothing more than a grifter, a petty thug slinging lies for cash. So let's get started. Ben has a decade-long history of fraudulence, so this will have to be done in several steps, and here's a little itinerary of what's to come. Right up top, I want to first demonstrate that all of his YouTube content is garbage. He puts out a video every single day in which he pretends to keep the viewer up to speed on recent developments in astrophysics, planetary science, and related fields. He flashes papers and pretends to summarize them, usually proposing that they support some fringe claim he has made. Here's the thing, he always misrepresents the paper. Sometimes he does it in a subtle way, twisting a few words, and sometimes he flat out makes up whatever he wants, directly contradicting the entire paper. Either way, he is always lying. This is the core of his con. He gives off an air of industriousness and transparency by showing all of these sources, but he doesn't actually communicate what's in them. He just uses his lawyer speak to deliver a self-serving message. It's a facade. The suggestible viewer is dazzled by his confidence and never bothers to look at the original source, since these papers are quite difficult to read, and most of his viewers are in it more for the story than the science anyway. Let's go through a few examples so you can see what I mean. In preparing this video, I presumed I would have to comb through a mountain of his content, but hilariously, I went through just the past week of his videos and found more than enough lies. Here's one from December 9th. Before we check this out, to those who don't know, Ben's big thing is that the sun causes earthquakes. It doesn't, so he tries to find papers that he can present in a way that validates his scam. This is one of them.
Now, folks, how do you tell when a new science is accepted enough to be in the club and get appropriate theoretical treatment from people who get paid to think? This. Now that pre-earthquake electromagnetic signals are accepted science, the creativity and funding are going to skyrocket.
He's talking about pre-earthquake electromagnetic signals and pretending that this paper has something to do with electromagnetic radiation from space. In actuality, this paper has to do with a satellite pointing down at the Earth, looking at microwave frequency emission from the Earth, which can be used to see surface temperatures, among other things. They found that before a couple earthquakes, there was some anomalous emission from the surface because there is stuff moving around underground, changing the thermal distribution. They are not looking at space at all. In fact, they explicitly state that data was taken at 1:30 a.m. because this is beneficial to reduce the interferences from human activities and solar radiation. So Ben either didn't even read the abstract, let alone the whole paper, or he did and is just lying about it. Either way, he is completely fabricating the contents of the paper to make it seem as though science is just now catching up to his baseless claims about solar flares, when in actuality, this paper has nothing to do with the sun whatsoever. But his viewers get caught up in the drama of funding and mainstream dogma and the imaginary politics, so they don't bother lifting a finger to examine the source themselves. This next one is from December 12th, and for context, Ben also peddles a scary 12,000-year death cycle surrounding solar activity, kind of like the plot of that dumb disaster movie 2012 with John Cusack, and which predictably is supposed to reset very soon. He also tries to upsell the effects of magnetism in celestial dynamics because that keeps him within the whole electric universe bubble, which is how he gets a lot of his followers. Let's listen to him spin his wheels for a minute.
Now, last but not least, we have two galactic articles hinting at a similar finish line. When they begin to add magnetism into the models, and you'd be amazed how often that is neglected for ease or replaced with hydrodynamical modeling, they begin to notice that they can begin to create the small-scale clouds and filaments and interactions that we see in the galaxy. And when they scale that up to the galactic level in full, they continually show the inflows, outflows, and hint at the importance of the large-scale magnetic fields of the system. Confirmation of the paradigm here, and with that paradigm comes the galactic current sheet running through the middle. The sheet is the trigger of the cosmic disaster, this shorter 12,000-year cycle knocking on our door once again. Yes, it won't be anywhere as bad as the 27-million-year cycle, and there will be plenty of humans around to tell the story, but as happens every 12,000 years, ain't everybody gonna make it.
So you get the picture. Magnetism is super awesome, and don't forget about the apocalypse. Now let's check out the two papers he's referencing. Paper 1 outlines a set of simulations which show that local magnetic fields can contribute to the shaping of interstellar dust clouds. Paper 2 uses the fact that there are charged particles in a galaxy, and stuff in the galaxy is moving, to calculate the size and direction of the resulting magnetic field, since charged particles in motion generate current, which produces a magnetic field. Ben starts out saying small scale a lot, acknowledging that these effects are localized, and then he jumps off the deep end, making inferences about magnetism shaping the galaxy, just like the other electric universe cranks. The papers do not support this in the slightest. Paper 1 is about small clouds, and Paper 2 is about calculating the resulting field from the moving charges in the galaxy, and is not about the field shaping the galaxy in any way whatsoever. Neither of these papers say anything about his wacky 12,000-year death cycle. He just shows random figures from the papers and then piles his verbal garbage on top. Pretending that it's appropriate to take what's in Paper 1 about small-scale magnetic effects and just
scale that up to the galactic level in full,
expecting to get the same results, just demonstrates that Ben has never taken a college-level physics course. For an inverse square field law, the length scale absolutely matters, and you can only get a similar effect at large scales by having a much, much larger field source. So how strong is the one measured in Paper 2? Around 20 microgauss. For reference, Earth's magnetic field is around half a Gauss, or 25,000 times larger, and a fridge magnet is 100 Gauss, or 5 million times larger. So when Ben pretends to be discussing a source for his mystical doomsday cycle, if he really thinks a 20 microgauss field is capable of that, then nobody better go near their fridge. If you had never heard of Ben before, hopefully you're getting a better idea of the nature of his con. He's an end-of-days pseudo-prophet. His 12,000-year micronova cycle nonsense is no different than what's at the core of any other apocalyptic Kool-Aid drinking cult. Ben just has a little twist in that where others simply shout through a megaphone on a street corner, Ben pretends his prophecy is science. Once you realize that he just lies through his teeth about scientific research, all that's left is an end of times rant, with doom coming from the sky in a few decades, just far enough away to keep people scared and glued to the screen. Next up, the one from December 7th. Another way Ben hooks his viewers is through climate change denial. In Ben's world, solar physicists are morons. Climate scientists are morons. Basically, anyone doing real science is a moron, and Ben is the authority in about 8 different fields of science despite zero training. So what he likes to do is show the abstract of a paper, that's the little summary up top, and just bend it to fit his narrative. He doesn't reference the meat of the paper and probably doesn't even read it. Let's compare what he says to what's in this paper, bit by bit.
And straight up saying there is no logical reason or rationale for why you are doing science the way that you are. You're just making it up as you go. Oof. Okay, my turn to take a shot. And let's just follow up with another confused climate article. So get this. Their best practice was recognizing insurmountable uncertainty in the climate models.
Nope, the paper says, we first show that models can reproduce the observed large-scale dynamics associated with cold events. Then later it says, historical simulation of global climate models showed good skills to reproduce the dynamical patterns identified in ERA5, although the change in shortwave radiation is less well captured. This paper is specifically talking about how the models are great. It's just harder to get high certainty when you have less data to work with, which is always true with models and simulations.
And they cannot actually tell if there is a positive or negative trend in extreme cold events.
Whoopsie, then what's this? Ensemble means indicate a downward trend in WIPECE days until the middle of the 21st century, followed by a stabilization around 1 or 2 days per winter. And take a look at Figure 9, downward trend.
They say, even if there is a drop in cold events, there would be no way to marry it to human-triggered global warming in the models.
Nope, it says, trends cannot be attributed with high confidence to any anthropogenic signal alone. Note the word alone. They can't attribute it to a single man-made pollutant alone, meaning they are confident it's man-made but not sure exactly how to break it down between greenhouse gases and aerosols, which have different effects on temperature. Look here. Some models are more sensitive to aerosols, leading to competing effects with greenhouse gases and unclear trends in WIPECE. Based on a detection attribution analysis, we found that none of the single forcing results could be excluded with good confidence.
And so their conclusion is that the next few decades will see fewer extreme cold events due to global warming. Yes, that has been the narrative of the world for quite some time, but that conclusion really isn't supported by your observations. Now, is it?
Actually, yes it is. That is literally what the paper is about. But smug little Ben wouldn't know that. He didn't read it. He has so many videos that are exactly like this. Just the day before this one, on December 6th, the video references a paper in a very respected journal, but as usual, just the abstract.
Let's go right to a climate article that appears to be a bit confused. After describing the 2019 setup that led to the heat in Australia's record fire season, they are now noticing that their greenhouse gas warming models actually limit one of the primary factors that would contribute to those heat anomalies. And at the same time, it's promoting convective action that leads to cold events. Their conclusion: greenhouse warming will lead to more events like 2019. If your brain is saying, wait a minute, yeah, it's not you with the problem.
Ben is basically saying hot equals fire and cold equals not fire, so the paper is dumb. Well, the paper is about the Indian Ocean Dipole, which refers to sea surface temperatures being hotter in the west near Africa and colder in the east near Australia. This means less rain for the land on the cold side, which sets up the dry conditions that lead to extreme bushfires. And if we keep getting this drying effect, there will be more events like this in the future. This image is the first thing that shows up when you Google positive Indian Ocean Dipole. So without bothering to read the paper or even Google the main keyword in the title, Ben is pretending that an article in a prestigious journal is contradicting itself in the abstract and no one caught it. But of course, Big Brain Ben is here to save the day. We could go on like this for hours, but I think what we've covered should be sufficient. Again, all the lies and blatant misrepresentations you just heard came from 1 week of his videos this month. 1 week. He has thousands of videos and they all employ the same pageantry. He flashes a paper and then makes up whatever he wants. What's even more pathetic is that it's not even original jargon. He just lifts most of it from something called the Die-Hold Foundation, where a guy named Doug Vogt uses bad math and the Hebrew Bible to predict disasters.
The next Gleisberg cycle will happen between September and December 2046. That's a given, and that's 136 of these. And I'll tell you one thing, the position of where the North Pole is and the decay rate of the Earth's magnetic field, it's not going to last another 100 years. 88 plus the 26, you get over 100 years.
Ben just lifted this garbage and repurposed it to fit his narrative, selling it to his viewers as a catastrophe cycle all the world's experts are too dumb to understand. So boiled down to their essence, his videos are just rapid-fire big words, plagiarized from published reports that he scrapes together from scientific websites, served in a salad bowl of anti-establishment conspiratorial tripe. But again, regardless of what comes out of his mouth, the suggestible viewer doesn't bother looking at the sources themselves and just buys whatever Ben says, especially if they like what he says. Sometimes these are people who want to engage in climate change denial but like to pretend they have a scientific basis for doing so. For others, it's just a general anti-establishment bias, people who want to believe that scientists are wrong, so they trust anyone who tells them so. But in any case, once ensnared, Ben directs his viewers to his super special bonus content behind a paywall and his ridiculous books, which is how he makes most of his money. So how did this all get started? Well, as I mentioned, Ben tried to be a lawyer, but he couldn't hack it, so he started making YouTube videos in 2011. And if you sort his videos by oldest first, you'll see how insane his content was at the get-go. Aliens, Illuminati, Nibiru, chemtrails. If QAnon had existed in 2011, he'd have been covering it. But Ben likes to think big, so he set his mind on more grandiose scamming endeavors. In 2014, he raised $62,000 on Kickstarter to soup up an RV, which he referred to as a mobile observatory, which just meant that he brought along a telescope with a sun filter and took a donor-funded road trip to play golf and meet up with fans. But that wasn't enough, so in 2016 he made another Kickstarter for a so-called disaster prediction app, which purportedly predicts disasters like earthquakes based on solar activity. The Kickstarter page reports about $120,000 raised, though other information indicates he raised about $220,000 in total. That's a lot of cheese. So, what did he do with it? He probably hired a team of people to develop the app and the technology that it would utilize, right? Nope, he created a shell company called 9 Reese LLC and funneled the money in there so he could pocket all of it while making it seem like it was being used for the app. A little tour of the bare-bones basic template website makes this abundantly clear. Oh, it's not up anymore, but I dug a little. Here's what the homepage used to look like. Ooh, AI. Let's try the About page. Wow, an international team of scientists, engineers, and academics. I wonder what their client list looks like. Whoa, just one client for that whole big team? Lucky Ben. And indeed, after 1 year with this crack squad, Ben reported having unquestionably the fastest storm program on the planet. With such a successful first year, the LLC must be on to some really great things by now, don't you think? Well, it's a little tough without a working website, and when your lead researcher, Matthew Kirkpatrick, who is really just a lawyer in Sacramento, doesn't even list it on his LinkedIn profile anymore, it seems like something must have gone wrong. By the way, if you look it up today on Manta, the LLC, presumably located where Ben lives, has an annual revenue that's less than 1 full-time salary and employs a staff of approximately 2. Ben, what are you making your wife do? So Ben made up a fake company, pocketed the cash, and spent who knows how little money to deliver the app. Despite advertising the app as free to use, it requires a subscription after download, and it does not predict disasters or earthquakes as the campaign claims. It is not based on science, nor is it based on any successful models as the Kickstarter page claimed it would. Oh yeah, and take a look at this ridiculous sweatshirt. Eyes open, no fear. This is the kind of ridiculous red pill pump-up language he uses to weave the narrative of the woke iconoclast and lure in his suggestible victims, some of whom, it would seem, had a little buyer's remorse. Don't look for this review, by the way. It isn't there anymore. Of course, if you ask Ben, or even if you don't, he claims that the app is indeed based on a successful model, his model, and he will refer to his groundbreaking paper that he wrote, which outlines this revolutionary theory. Well, as I explained at length in my other video about him, his paper is a joke. It failed to pass peer review for one of Springer's earthquake journals, so he paid to publish in the predatory pseudoscience journal New Concepts in Global Tectonics. It's just a bunch of figures with axes unlabeled that tries to correlate past earthquakes with solar activity and visibly fails for anyone who actually bothers to read the paper. His co-author on this paper is also advertised as the co-creator of the Disaster app, but in actuality, once he became aware of Ben's intentions to monetize the illegitimate model, he ran for the hills to avoid the stain on his career, and insists on not being associated with it. Ben only advertises him as having been involved because he needed someone with a doctorate to seem credible, since he's an uneducated, unqualified, unpublished buffoon. But don't worry, according to Ben, this app will one day save lives. I mean, he's not all wrong. It saved his family from starvation, I suppose. Now check out the third name on this paper, Christopher Holloman. This is the statistician Ben hired to make his fluff look like science. I was interested on his take on the paper, so I reached out for some commentary. Here are some excerpts from what he had to say by email. So right away, we can see that Chris had serious ethical concerns about working with Ben, as they were at odds about what was in the paper. Let's allow him to elaborate. And the cat is out of the bag. The statistician credited on the paper is explaining how all Ben did was look at past earthquakes and try to retrofit his story on top, which doesn't test anything. If Ben wanted to be taken seriously, he would use the model to make predictions, see how things line up going forward in time, and publish that. He didn't do that for this paper, and despite how simple it would be, he hasn't done it in the 5 years since, because he knows that he has no capacity to predict earthquakes. He just distorts data to serve the narrative he wants to sell. So Chris handled the data, if you can call it that, as he was paid to do, but given his concerns, why did he go through with it? There you go. It all seemed like pseudoscience to him, but he decided not to overstep his role. He just did his job. And if he had known the point of the paper was to feign scientific credibility to make money on a disaster app, he probably would have chosen differently. But in the end, it's all moot, because Ben's joke of a paper was rejected from peer review. It's not real science, so by definition, it is not a successful model. Ben's app, therefore, objectively is not based on a successful model at all, and it doesn't do anything. Ben can't predict earthquakes. So when he claims time and time again that he can, what is he referring to exactly? Guesses. All of his predictions on the app, on Twitter, or anywhere else are guesses. There are an average of 134 magnitude 6 or above earthquakes per year. This means anyone can predict that such a quake will happen at some point in the next 3.5 days, and there is a 99.7% chance that there will be. Anyone can therefore tether their guesses to line up with some other phenomenon, like when the Dodgers win a game, or when the soup of the day is French onion in the cafeteria, or in Ben's case, the appearance of a coronal hole in the sun. And there is a 99.7% chance of a quake occurring within 3.5 days, 95% for 2 days, and 68% for 1 day. What kind of window does Ben use?
But the northern coronal hole is connecting magnetically to Earth today. We've got an earthquake watch, and it's coming on the heels of a drought. Do expect a considerable uptick in earthquakes over the coming 2 to 3 days.
So Ben just makes sure the window is long enough and stabs in the dark with a vague location along the most active fault lines in the world. He does this about 3 times a day, ignores the flops, which are most of them, and fixates on anything anywhere close to a hit, which is usually something in the magnitude 5 range a few hundred miles away from his prediction. And if he gets really unlucky with a dozen predictions and still not a single quake, he just tweets something like, "Beginning to fear a dangerous end to this drought and building up of pressure." Sure, Ben, that's what you're afraid of. So that's a pretty tidy summary of a major chapter from Ben's tale of fraudulence. He wrote a fake paper and used it as the basis for a fake disaster app, which amounts to false claims towards potential donors. The best word for it is a scam. So when he is called out in the comments section of his videos, it's no surprise that he reacts with hostility, spouting his usual rubbish about how so many people cite his work, including NASA scientists. They don't. As I showed in my previous video, his pseudo paper is cited only 8 times, one of which is to say he's wrong, one of which was a startup physically located on the NASA campus but not NASA employees as he claims, and one was even a rant about 9/11. Nobody cares about his paper, even the other 2 authors on it, as one ran for the hills and the other flat out states that the paper is illegitimate. He also loves to talk about what he refers to as his textbook on space weather, available for sale, of course, that so many professors use in their classes. That's a lie as well. Nobody uses his book in an official curriculum. If anyone actually did, you'd better believe that he'd never shut up about it, and there would be screenshots and interviews and a freaking parade. There is zero evidence anywhere on the internet that any institution uses anything he's ever done. Nobody in academia acknowledges him in any way, shape, or form. This is something that really seems to keep Ben up at night. He so desperately wants to be viewed as a scholar. This desperation leads him to some bizarrely belligerent behavior, like a fiasco he started with the United States Geological Survey. Ben's drones kept spamming his pseudo-paper to professionals, including members of the USGS. This is not unprompted behavior on their part. Ben egged them on with a video where he issues a challenge to the USGS with this cartoon of Dr. Jeffrey Love to mock him, since his work contradicts Ben's lies. Dr. Love graciously replied to the drones with some information on what would constitute legitimate earthquake prediction, making it clear that Ben has not demonstrated this capacity whatsoever, because his one paper is not peer-reviewed, which is a polite way of saying that it's not real science. When they refer him to Ben's fake paper, Dr. Love again replies, probably with patience already running thin, that he looks forward to seeing the results in a peer-reviewed journal, since NCGT isn't one. That's when Ben decided to jump in, and he is such a narcissist that he actually shared the email exchange to look like a big shot for his minions, even though he comes off as a petulant child. He starts with a little fit and a name drop of Chris Holloman, though we all know what Chris thinks about the paper. Dr. Love tells Ben to publish his results in a peer-reviewed journal, stressing the importance of statistical analysis, to which Ben responds with an even bigger fit. Dr. Love basically says, if you don't know how to do science, that's not my problem. To which Ben responds with a huge block of whining laced with overtones of China conspiracy. And it continues for a while like this. Novella-length fits from Ben, with Dr. Love continually just telling Ben to do science like a big boy. This is all combined with a challenge he issued on Facebook, literally threatening to sue the USGS, because apparently suing people is how lawyers do science. But of course, instead of an expert telling an amateur how science works, Ben spins it as the man keeping him down, and his followers eat it up with a glass of milk on the side. As if this wasn't enough, and for Ben it's never enough, this was followed by an open letter to Dr. Love's boss. I want to show you this letter too, because it demonstrates precisely what a delusional narcissist Ben is. Take a minute and skim through it. Again, Ben is attacking legitimate geologists who couldn't care less about his pseudoscience and pretending that they somehow owe him their attention, as opposed to avoiding him like they would a babbling lunatic on a street corner. He throws his more insane viewers right under the bus when he wants to separate himself, even though it's all the us versus them citizen science nonsense he spews on his channel, which ramps them up to do his dirty work in the first place. And again, he name drops his remorseful co-authors on his fake paper as though they give him credibility, which, as you can see by now, is something he does a lot. My favorite is this last bit where he literally brags about his SAT scores. Not that it matters, but hey Benji, I got a 1500. Want to donate to my Kickstarter? The alarming thing is that Ben has been selling this lie for so long now that I think he might actually believe his own lie. He may actually think that he can predict earthquakes when it is blatantly obvious that he has never done this. This is why he has to sell the anti-establishment narrative that a certain type of person so easily falls for. Everyone in the world who studies solar physics and seismic activity and anything else remotely related to what Ben is selling, they're all morons clinging to obsolete dogma top to bottom. Except, of course, anyone that he can pretend is in his corner, whether associated with NASA or anything else with prestige, though, as it turns out, they never really are. This is why he has to peddle conspiracy. This is why he has videos with titles like Energy from Space, The Shift Has Begun, and why he entertains ridiculous pseudoscience like his Electric Universe cronies, because the easiest targets for his scam are people who are prone towards pseudoscience. He doesn't have a legitimate leg to stand on. He can only thrive by nurturing the conspiracy-driven and pumping them full of us versus them drivel, such that they go and harass other people online, all while blocking any dissenters internally. And that's really all Ben has in the end. He has no publications, no qualifications, no credibility. All he has is the ability to trick a small group of people into buying the persona he presents, or even doing his work for him with his open call for earthquake forecasters to step up and pull their weight. That's why it's appropriate to call Ben's channel a doomsday cult. There's a smoke and mirrors cult leader who lies to make money, and the poor saps who fall for it. So that's what you need to know about Ben Davidson and suspicious observers. To his couple hundred ultra-devoted minions, I won't bother addressing you since I know that you will never ever watch this video. Instead, I'll see you in the comments section where you are blindly regurgitating whatever script Ben gave you. But this video wasn't for you in the first place. Apart from everyone who has never heard of him, this video was also for the thousands of people who are casually subscribed to Ben's channel and have only a passing interest in his content, or perhaps just saw one random video and subscribed on a whim thinking it was real science. To those people, now that you know what he is, perhaps you'll modify your YouTube activity and avoid this snake oil slinging sociopath. Until next time.